I went to University of Michigan for college in Ann Arbor, and I studied Russian literature and language. And then I added a second major, history, my last year. I had the great opportunity to go to Moscow in 1988 while I was a student to study Russian language. So I went for my semester abroad in 88, which was really the height of glasnost, perestroika, and all that good stuff with Gorbachev. And so you would read about how, you know, everyone's coming out of their homes and standing on the street corners and talking about issues of the day. And they were like, you could go to Pushkin Square, you could go to this spot or that spot and find people just talking. I mean, it was like the public square like I'd never seen and haven't seen since. Like really using public space to discuss politics, to discuss social issues, to speak the things that really people had not spoken, at least outside their homes, for decades. So it was an incredibly exciting moment, and I was hooked from then on. That was it in 88. And then I got my degree in 90, and then I moved to Boston for 2 years where I lived. And I actually, the most interesting part of that time is I worked for a guy called Richard Pipes. That may or may not mean anything to you. He was the historian of Russia at Harvard, and he was hiring a research assistant. So I went and interviewed with him, and I'll never forget this. He wanted to know two things about me. So this guy, you got to look up Richard Pipes, okay? He was like the one of the most important mentors for generations of Russian historians across the country and world. He died about, I don't know, I want to say 5, 6 years ago. He's Polish Jewish gentleman who also wrote America's Cold War policy under the first Bush. So he worked, yeah. Anyway, but during my interview with Dr. Pipes, with Richard Pipes, I was up in his, I don't know if you've ever been in Widener Library of Harvard, but his office was like classic, like the books are coming down on you. You're like feel really claustrophobic. So he had me sit at his computer, his big Macintosh, and he's like, type. I want to see how, if can you type? Do you know how to type? How fast can you type? I was like just out of college with my two fingers. Like I couldn't type. So I was like, failed that test. And then he pulls a book off the shelf that's in Russian. He goes, translate. And I passed that test. And because he hired me on the spot. And then I worked with him for a full year in that teeny office, Widener O, for 40 hours a week, me and Richard Pipes. And once you look him up and realize how important and interesting he is, you'll be impressed. And it was also 1991, 1990, 91. So the Soviet Union was about to collapse. So it was a particularly interesting time to be working with this professor. And then after that, I applied to grad school. Michigan accepted me, so I went back to Ann Arbor to get my PhD in Russian history. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to defer for a year, and because I wanted to work for Pipes, and Michigan said no because I was not a very good test taker. So I made it in because they knew me, but not enough to get deferred. So Pipes wrote a letter to the two people who had become my mentors in graduate school, who were his students, and they couldn't say no, so they deferred me. So yeah, and then as a matter of fact, as soon as I finished my dissertation, it wasn't even finished. I had two chapters done. FIU hired me, and I moved to Miami in 2000 from DC because I lived in DC for a while in between. So it's a very, very straightforward path. It's pretty dull. A lot of people have twists and turns, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I did it.